The committee has spoken. The college football top 25 is released. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, here to respond. So, for the past hour, I have been discussing Florida State football during our Seminoles live show. So, I have not seen the rankings. Waiting for a few people to jump online as we address the rankings. And of course, this will process and post to YouTube. So, I'll get started here because most of you will watch the taped version. But please leave your comments and leave your questions in the live chat, and I will get to them. Also, keep in mind that you can call us at 860-325-3687. Here we go. Let's look at the rankings and compare my top 25 that actually makes sense with the selection committee that sometimes makes sense. At number one, the selection committee has vaulted Ohio State to number one from number two with the Penn State win at home, winning by 11 points, besting LSU's effort against Arkansas. So the Ohio State resume and eye test has apparently eclipsed LSU at this point. I still have LSU at number one, and I still have the Buckeyes at two. The committee has Clemson at three, as do I. The committee has Georgia at four, as do I. The committee has Alabama at number five. I have the Tide at five as well. The committee has Utah at six. I do as well. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee has Oklahoma at seven. I've got Oklahoma at eight. The committee has Minnesota at eight. I've got the Golden Gophers at nine. The committee has Baylor at 9. I've got Baylor at 10. Then the committee comes in with Penn State at 10. I've got the Nittany Lions at number 11. The selection committee has Wisconsin at 12. I've got the Badgers at 13. They've got Oregon down to 14 after the big loss at Arizona State. I have Oregon at 12. All right, Notre Dame or at Oregon, yes, at 14. Auburn at 15. I've got Auburn at 16. So every team, the selection committee and myself, which of course I released my rankings on Sunday, are either dead on or I'm one spot off. All right, so the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are at 16. I've got them at 15. We've got Iowa at 17. So do I. Iowa at 17. Memphis at 18. I've got Memphis at 18. They've got Cincinnati at 19. I've got the Bearcats at 20. They've got Boise State at 20. I've got the Broncos at 22. The selection committee places Oklahoma State at 21. I've got the Cowboys at 21. They've got USC at 22. I've got USC at 24. They've got Iowa State in the rankings at 23. I do not have Matt Campbell's team in the top 25. They've got Virginia Tech at 24. I've got them at 25. And they've got App State at 25. I've got App State at 23. So it's pretty much the same top 25. Wow. That close to the selection committee. Wow. They must be getting wise. Must be smartening up there in the selection committee process. My goodness, they're getting good. So every spot's like one off or zero off, where we go step and step. So I'll check out the comments and I will take your calls. You can call me at 860-325-3687 to talk to the voice of college football. All right, let's check out the comments. Good morning to you as well. Good to see you. Mr. Rubicon, I think Clemson is peaking now. They might be. It's kind of difficult based on the competition to tell, but they are certainly dominant. Mr. Rubicon, could you imagine the BCS picking between LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson? Good point. Let's say LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson all finish out undefeated, which is very likely. Could you imagine back in the BCS era? That would be the selection right there, Mr. Rubicon. Thank you so much. Ho, ho, ho. Okra Joe. Daniel, Alabama's overrated. They have only 2 teams that they have beaten over 500, Tennessee and Texas A&M. Tennessee, Texas A&M. Correct. Duke has been awful, 4-7. Ohio State has a better resume than LSU. Think it's debatable. Bama played the number 1 ranked team this year. Enough said. Bama played the number 1 ranked team. Yes, they played them. They lost, but they did play them. So they've got the best loss. Alabama's got the best loss. LSU at home by 5. Close game. That would be the best loss. Yes, would that be the best loss? Would that be the best loss? You know who really is the best loss in the country is North Carolina. North Carolina has the best loss. They should have beaten Clemson. They lost by 1 point on a 2-point conversion. But, of course, they're not a factor. But North Carolina, I believe, has the best loss in the country. Yes. Yeah, 21-20. Okra Joe, committee will put in Oklahoma for the ex-Bama Jalen Hurts versus other quarterbacks storyline. Josh, who do you think gets in if LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson win out for number 4? So those 3 are in. The number 4, if Oklahoma wins out, I would think that as Big 12 champion with a better resume than Utah, that Oklahoma would make it. Certainly, Alabama would have the dominance factor over Oklahoma. Alabama has played its schedule much better than Oklahoma has played its schedule. Oklahoma has not looked like a top 4 team over the past 5 or 6 games, but they are playing at this point a better schedule, and they're maintaining a trip. And at the point in which Oklahoma, think about this, if Oklahoma wins out and wins the Big 12 championship with 1 loss, added to its current resume, you're talking about another win over Baylor and a win over Oklahoma State. So a win over number 10 and 21. Second place in the ACC equals about 4th or 5th in the MAC. Somebody's looking to get rid of Dan Enos, or maybe a lot of people are looking to get rid of Dan Enos, and all of them reside in South Florida. Cheryl, good to see you again. The Buckeyes will play 6 ranked teams after 2 weeks. You got Penn State, you got Wisconsin, you got Michigan, you got a Big 10 championship game. That's 4. You got Cincinnati. Maybe somebody else is in there that I'm missing. Is Indiana ranked? Big 10 championship game, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Cincinnati. I've got 5, Cheryl. Who am I missing? All right. Michigan has a better resume than Alabama at 2 losses. That's a good point. I will, when I believe I missed it, I will let you know. And in ranking the teams, I take great measure in this, but believe me, this is not a science project. This is not a term paper. I put it together. I review it. I look it over. But yeah, I've missed it before and thought, maybe I missed a spot there. This in particular, I think that maybe because somebody brought this to my attention, that I should have backed up Oregon even further down the rankings. I've got the Ducks at 12, and even though I've only got them 2 spots from where the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, Michigan certainly has a strong resume, as is being pointed out right there. Nate, if you miss 10 seconds, you miss a whole lot here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So I can't even go into what you possibly missed. But I think you joined us for the previous live show that got rather lively near the end, with Jason and I going at it during the Florida State Seminoles live show about the credentials of Matt Campbell and James Franklin. Are Miami and USC the same program? They are not. USC is a much better program than Miami. I have much more confidence in USC turning this around than Miami. The last time Miami was a legit top 10 team was 2004. 2004 was the last time Miami was a legitimate top 10 team. Even that 2017 run at 10-0 was weak, and then they lost 3 consecutive games and they didn't finish in the top 10, but even their near top 10 ranking was smoke and mirrors. They were a top 25 team. USC, as recent as 2017, has been a top 10 team. USC's close. USC, just watch them play. They're better than Miami. USC's not losing to FIU and Georgia Tech. The records might be somewhat close with USC at 7-4, 8-4 after the win against UCLA. They put up 52 last week. And Miami, no comparison. USC is one of the 20 or 25 best teams in the country. Miami is like a top 50 team. All the potential number 4s out there, better to sit out this year than get blown out by Ohio State. It was just said to me in our last show that LSU would dog stomp Ohio State. Cheryl, one week they have Indy in the top 25, then the next week they're out. Well, they did lose. They lost by 25 points to Michigan. If they would have kept that game close, they should still be around. Daniel, if Utah wins out with 1 loss to USC at 8-4, is that better than Oklahoma winning out with 1 to Kansas, as either that would be Kansas State, 7-5 or 8-4? So the losses would be comparable. And I would say that USC is better than Kansas State slightly. But Oklahoma would have wins over Baylor twice, Texas, Iowa State, TCU, Oklahoma State. Utah would have wins over Oregon, Arizona State, 6-5. Who is Utah beaten? There's the problem. They played nobody in the non-conference. BYU. They beat Washington and Arizona State. Those are their 2 best wins aside from the projected win against Oregon. Oklahoma has better wins than Utah. That's the difference. Yes, we need to avoid this, Don. This is an issue. Why this could not have been avoided the last time that Michigan and Florida played in the Peach Bowl last season, after they had already played twice in the previous 2 seasons. So from the conclusion of the 2015 season to the conclusion of the 2018 season, Michigan and Florida played 3 times. There are so many other teams out there. And this happened at a time in which, this is insane, Michigan was matched up against Florida. LSU in the other bowl game, the Fiesta Bowl, was matched up against UCF when everyone wanted to see UCF and Florida play. And guess what? In the history of college football, Michigan and LSU have never played. That's insane. LSU and Michigan have never played. They could have played last year instead of Michigan playing Florida for a 3rd time, and UCF would have played Florida. That's how screwed up the system is, beyond the playoff selection. John, hi, Mark. Does Florida have any possible way back in the playoffs? Oh man. Ohio State loses to Michigan, then loses to Wisconsin, who has to beat Minnesota. So you've got Wisconsin as a Big Ten champion with 2 losses. Clemson gets in. Florida just beats Florida State. They're 10-2. Man, there are just too many metrics. If you would have asked me that question, John, last week, I could have given you more losses to get Florida into the playoffs, but it's just so beyond ludicrous right now. No, it can't happen. It can't happen. There's no way for it to happen. There's just no way for it to happen. Plug Georgia in. Yeah. Black Star 313. How do you justify Baylor moving up 5 spots? Baylor's win last week. Who did they beat? Texas, 24-10. So that's a good win. It's a decent win. They controlled the game. They didn't dominate, but they controlled the game, and they moved up 5 spots. Well, part of it we need to understand, Black Star, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying we need to understand that these decisions are not made in a silo. So other teams' results factor into it. So, of course, Oregon dropped below them. And Penn State must have dropped down based on their loss, even though the loss was a pretty decent loss. They moved up 5 spots based on a Texas win. That does seem to be a bit extreme. I have Baylor at 10, 1 spot, but I only moved them 3 spots. I moved them from 13 to 10. The committee moved them from 14 to 9. So I think you've got a good point, Black Star. So here's a lesson to be learned, courtesy Nate Kingston. Nate is letting everyone know, make sure your phones are fully charged before a full night of Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. USC has already started turning it around. Wins with the injuries they had this year is a very good result. Agreed. Josh, top 3 voices I like to hear talking about college football. Thank you so much. I appreciate the encouragement there, Josh. Thank you so much. We do what we can. And if I get to a point where I can do this full time, believe I'll be stuffing my head with even more college football information. Right now, I give 50 hours to my job, so it's difficult to do. But I appreciate that, Josh. Thank you so much. So Cheryl, I did not forget Minnesota because again, I said for Ohio State's 6 ranked wins or ranked teams that they will play, I said Big Ten championship game, which would be Minnesota, Michigan, Penn State, Wisconsin, Cincinnati. Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Penn State, Michigan, Big Ten championship game. I don't see the 6th one. I guess Indiana when they were ranked, right? Is that it? Steve, LSU, Georgia in the SEC championship game will shake up the college football playoff no matter who wins. Well, if LSU wins, obviously Georgia's toast. Unless there's complete chaos in the Big 12 and the Pac 12, then Georgia might have a fighting shot if they lose a second game to LSU and it is razor tight. Like if this is a classic 38-37 game and Georgia loses with 2 losses, 11-2, and let's say the Pac-12 implodes and the Big 12 implodes, Oregon beats Utah as a 2-loss champion, and Baylor and Oklahoma split, and maybe one of them even loses this next game. Oklahoma loses to Oklahoma State. That's the way I see that statement coming into play. Philip, to digress a bit, does Urban take the USC head coaching job if offered? I don't know. I don't know what's in the man's between his ears or in his heart. I know that he's had health issues that some people make light of. I don't because I don't make fun of or make light of anybody's health issues. I don't try to conjecture as to whether they were less than what they were reported to be. But maybe I have to think that Urban Meyer wants to be a football coach. He is only 54 years old. And as of a couple of years ago, was on the heels of Nick Saban in regards to all-time legacy. 14 years younger than Nick Saban and on his heels in regards to a legacy. So that's mighty impressive. So for a man who I'm sure, and anybody who's accomplished, who's an alpha dog, knows their place in history, and I'm sure Urban Meyer knows that his is cemented with one of the great winning percentages in history, actually the best of modern college football. Urban Meyer has the best winning percentage in modern college football history, number 3 all time. that he understands that his legacy could just go through the roof and challenge Saban and Bear Bryant if he was able to come back and win a national championship at AUSC, for example. But I don't know what the health issues are and if they have been corrected. I've heard that they are going to last a lifetime. The two Meister, Utah's schedule doesn't help them. I don't think Oregon is an easy win either for Utah. Oklahoma beating Baylor is more likely. Florida would have killed UCF last year. Well, we've got some pretty intriguing, I'll say interesting and amusing comments on the live chat that I will not take to the screen involving some questionable comments, but they're still amusing. Yes, I guess you could say that. You could say that. I wouldn't say that, but sure. Yes, Cheryl, point them in the right direction. Yes, I'm taking phone calls. 860-325-3687. What time is it? 8:27. I am taking calls. McD Sports 4, typically my first caller. I think he holds the record for being the first caller. That's my guess. Either George or McD Sports 4. But McD has certainly upped his game recently. Utah, arguably the third best defense in the NCAA. Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, LSU. All right, let's take some calls. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's McD Sports 4. How are you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. The reason why I asked you if you're taking calls is because it's better for me just to say everything I have that I want to say about this top 25 speaking, because it's quicker and it makes more sense than me just commenting.
Absolutely.
On any chat. So that's why I asked. My reaction to the top 25. I disagree with 1 and 2. I think LSU should still be number 1. I think they have the better resume, personally.
Okay. I still have LSU number 1.
I mean, I think they have the best win in college football as well, LSU.
They do.
So.
I would agree.
I mean, I can't believe they dropped Oregon down. Well, I can't say that part because in my opinion, that Oregon loss, I wouldn't call it a terrible loss, but it's kind of like a bad loss, per se. So, I mean, I guess I'm okay with them dropping them 8 spots. I'm surprised they moved Baylor up 5 spots for beating Texas, because Texas is not a good football team.
Texas is a decent football team. They're
a
top 30 or 35 team. And but I don't know if you heard my comment in response to somebody else complaining about that. I think that's a legitimate statement. And moving up Baylor's 5 spots seems to be a bit much. I moved them up 3 spots, but it's not done in a vacuum. It's not like, okay, Baylor was 14 last week, put them at 9 because they beat Texas, a 6-5 team. It's done in response to all the other teams, though, as well. So there were teams, Oregon in particular, who lost in front of them, which dropped them. And Penn State.
True. One other thing I disagree about with this poll, I think Minnesota is the 6th best team in the country. I have them at number 6. I have Utah at 7, Oklahoma at 8. But if you put Minnesota and Utah on a field, which I think is very possible, we're going to see that in the Rose Bowl, I think Minnesota will win that game. So that's why I'll go with Minnesota at 6. And they always have the better loss, Minnesota. Utah, I mean, I know I came on here saying how Utah got hosed by the refs, basically. But on paper, I think Minnesota losing to Iowa is a better loss than Utah losing to USC. What do you think about that?
Utah, Minnesota. Minnesota losing at Iowa, Utah losing to USC. Yeah, Iowa's better than USC, and especially that game was in a more difficult venue where they were both on the road, but going to Kinnick Stadium and losing by a 23-19 score is nothing to be ashamed of. Yes.
So I disagree with that. A few other points about this poll, and then I have a question for you, not relating to the poll, that I want to ask you. I think Wisconsin, once again, I really think they're overrating Wisconsin. I know they're 9-2, but I think they're one of the worst 9-2 teams out there. Personally, I mean, I would pit Oregon and Auburn over Wisconsin, only because of I just think those two teams will beat them. I think Wisconsin's too one-dimensional offensively, and I think Wisconsin's just a bit overrated. What do you think of Oregon being ahead of Auburn, despite the head-to-head at 14-15, and since the records are 9-2 and 8-3?
I've got Oregon 4 spots ahead of Auburn. So what needs to be taken into consideration is that I value the head-to-head over everything, but that only is lock solid if the two teams have the same record. Once you have one team with a better record, then I certainly take it into consideration if two teams played, one team won, and they have a one-game worse record, like is this case in this situation. And Auburn has certainly played a tougher schedule with more big-time opponents, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, than Oregon has. So I think it's a valid point.
So, I mean, I just want to see your opinion on that. Two other problems I have with this poll is I still think Boise State's the best Group of 5 team. I know Cincinnati's one loss was to Ohio State, but they got shut out. I think that has to count towards something, them getting shut out. And also Cincinnati, the past few weeks or so, maybe not so much in the South Florida game, they've been in some close games that probably shouldn't have been very close.
True.
So Memphis, they lost to a Group of 5 team. Boise State's lost to BYU. Some conferences, like the Pac-12, call that a Power 5 team. Others, like the SEC, don't. So I would say, and it was a 3-point loss. It kind of went back and forth, and it was on the road. So I just think Boise State is the best Group of 5 team. And also, if you look at Memphis and Boise State's Power 5 win, Florida State is a better team than Ole Miss. So that's why I will also go Boise State over Memphis.
Florida State's better than Ole Miss. It's kind of tough to distinguish those two teams.
One's bowl eligible, one's not.
I don't care who's bowl eligible. One of them plays in a much better conference. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'd have to look at that. Let's look at Ole Miss's ledger here. Keep going with your points there. I'm looking at Ole Miss here.
And then I still don't think Iowa State should be in the top 25. Personally, I had Navy at 25, and I had Iowa State out because I just don't think a 4-loss Power 5 team should be in any rankings until championship weekend, when you have to fill out some of these spots, because not all those teams are playing, and you might have like a few good 4-loss teams.
I've got to say, McD, I've got to say that the first week that the selection committee placed Navy in the top 25, I thought, Mark, did you miss something? I'm looking at my top 25 thinking, man, did I miss something? Then I looked at Navy's schedule and I thought, why? Why are they even close to the top 25? What has Navy done? All due respect to Navy, if we're talking about the fine work that the young men do off the field, all due respect, obviously, that we're talking a completely different deal. But in terms of football, I would definitely take Iowa State. And I don't rank the teams based on who I would think would win the games against each other. That's not how I rank the teams. I base it on a resume. But Iowa State, I believe, has a much better resume than Navy.
I mean, I'm just going off win-loss record because Iowa has 2 more losses than Navy.
Well, sure, of course they do. They play in a much better conference. Their schedule's much tougher. They played Iowa and basically muffed a punt, or they would have beaten Iowa. They took Oklahoma to a 2-point conversion, 42-41. I think Iowa State's had a pretty good season.
I'm not saying they're a bad team. I don't feel comfortable picking a 4-loss team.
But you're going to put a 2-loss American Conference team?
The only 2 losses are against teams that are better than them in the rankings.
Who have they beaten? Who has Navy beaten that's any good?
SMU.
SMU. Okay. That's
really their top win.
And they got buried by Notre Dame.
Same thing with Cincinnati, and they're in the rankings.
Well, Iowa State, I can't see losing to Notre Dame, whatever that score was, 42-7. I would be shocked if Iowa State lost to Notre Dame 42-7.
I mean, you have a good point, and I actually agree with your point, but I just can't pick a 4-loss team in any rankings at this time.
I certainly can, if they're better than the teams that and have a better resume, like Texas A&M. They've lost to Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn.
I saw that in your rankings. I commented on the video that I absolutely disagree with that. Their best win, A&M's best win, I believe, would be, I want to say,
South Carolina.
Yeah,
okay.
Possibly.
I'll put South Carolina on par with SMU. Is there much difference between those two teams?
I would take SMU over South Carolina right now. South Carolina looks like a complete dumpster fire.
Yeah, they were good enough to beat the number 4 team in the country.
That was the biggest aberration I've ever seen this season.
That you've ever seen? Really? Wow.
I'm telling you.
I guess I've been watching college football way too long. I remember a whole lot of aberrations more egregious than South Carolina beating Georgia.
I've been watching since 2014 during the playoff there, really, like hardcore. So, but the thing I want to actually not involving the top 25 is I want to name a few head coaches, Mark, right now. And all I want to know is, are they going to be employed on Monday, next Monday or not? Okay. Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
Will Muschamp.
Yes, but I'm wavering. Yes.
Okay. Gus Malzahn.
Yes.
Derek Mason.
Vanderbilt came out a few weeks ago and said that they were going to retain him for next year. They've already made that statement.
They did?
They did, despite being 2-8 at the time.
Well, I actually think he's a good head coach. I can't blame them. I mean, he does have a winning record against the in-state rival, so. But some people are calling for his.
I'm not impressed with Derek Mason and never have been.
Tom Herman.
Yes.
Clay Helton.
No.
You think Clay Helton's out?
I think he's out. That's a tough call, but I think he's out. Out of all of those, he would be the first one I would select. Tom Herman, now, if we were another year removed from the Sugar Bowl win, getting to the conference championship game, and we're sitting here a year from now, and he's sitting on another 7-5, if he gets to 7-5, then he's in hot water.
Okay. I have 4 more coaches. Dave Doran.
Again, it's only one bad season. Rarely does a coach get fired after one bad season, especially when he's got some equity. And Dave Doran has equity there. He's racked up 9-win seasons there. So maybe another bad season. So he retains his job.
Okay. Steve Adorizio, or Adorizio, however you pronounce his last
Are we
name.
talking the
up there,
BC
Boston
coach,
College.
Adazio?
Yeah,
That's
Adorizio.
no, that's interesting. Again, I just don't think he's going to lose his job. It's one bad season, and their expectations are not high. And he's been going 7-5 there over and over and over and over.
I heard rumors about him earlier this year. That's why I asked you about that one.
Sure, could be.
Joe Moorhead.
Ooh, I'm gonna say out.
Okay. And then the last guy, the guy at Michigan State, Mark D'Antonio. I suppose I always pronounce his name wrong. D'Antonio, the guy at Michigan State.
I believe that's a tricky one. He certainly has the equity there. They might try to arrange something to get him out the door and make it look all nice and nifty, and retain his self-respect in that one. But I'm gonna lean toward. I'm gonna say D'Antonio's gone.
Okay, I have two more that I thought of. I'm sorry, Mark.
That's all right. That's why we're here.
Okay, Kevin Sumlin.
Oh boy, yeah, he's not done a whole lot, has he? He's gonna miss another bowl game. What are they, 4-7?
Yeah, they're going nowhere. And they have one of the most exciting football players in Clear Tate.
And that's supposed to be his forte. Molding quarterbacks. Yeah. Kevin Sumlin got a long leash at Arizona though. He's back for one more year.
Okay. Actually, I thought of another one as well besides the two. One name I'm hearing, kind of hearing whispers about, this might surprise you, Barry Odom at Missouri.
Again, everyone was satisfied with what he was doing prior to this season. They had expectations that they were going to win 9 games. It hasn't happened, so I think he's going to be around. But the probabilities say that. How many coaches did you just name? Maybe 12? Who knows? But
probably like 10.
The probabilities say that the number that I mentioned who are going to be out is probably low. More than I just couldn't really figure out, okay, because all of them seem to be in that category of they had one bad season, except Kevin Sumlin. They all had one bad season. They were only removed from having a decent season 1 year, and typically it takes 2 straight years before a program will pull the trigger.
Okay. I have one more head coach I can think of right now that I heard rumors at the beginning. I think it kind of cooled off a bit, but even though the season hasn't been impressive, and I actually don't want to see this guy go because I think he's kind of in a bad situation. Matt Luke at Ole Miss. You think he's out?
Yeah, I think they expected more from their team this year. I thought they expected a couple more wins. They sit at 4-7. They probably will. It's a toss-up game.
I think they'll go into Starkville and beat them. Honestly, I really don't have a good feeling about this Mississippi State team.
Yeah, they might both have new coaches next year. I think Matt Luke is going to stick around for one more year. And speaking of Ole Miss, because we were making the Ole Miss Florida State comparison, I really can't point to Ole Miss winning against anybody decent. But they barely lost to Memphis, 15-10. They barely lost to Texas A&M by a touchdown. They only lost to Auburn by 6. They played that crazy game against Cal in which the game was decided at the goal line. Don't know if you remember that with 1 second left.
I do.
So they've played pretty well despite 4-7.
Okay. And then I have one more name. Mike Locksley, University of Maryland head coach.
There's your guy. He might be the exception because Typically, it takes 2 bad years to get a coach canned, but this has been so awful.
It's been really bad. I think we keep up for another year. But all I'm going to say, Mark, is I don't care what happens in the Michigan State game. If we win, that's probably a good thing. If we lose, oh well. He better. I'm going to say this: at minimum, it better be 5-7, and those 7 losses, some of them, because I don't expect us to go ahead into the Ohio State game or like the Michigan game next year and do much in that game. But like, let's say we go 5-7. There better be at least 3 or 4 of those losses. Better be competitive and really close, like one possession games. Because if next season, if they're only like 2 wins or 3 wins, or against Towson and Rutgers or something like that, I will be calling for his job rather early.
I posted a video at the time that Mike Locksley was hired and basically said, "Why? Why is this guy being hired for a job in the Big Ten?"
Why. Well, here's the reason why I got hired at Maryland, because he's been an assistant coach there for a long time.
I know.
In previous years, he recruited a bunch of the talent that you saw in those mid 2000 teams, and not mid 2000s, late 2000s, and then also in the early 2010s. Like, for example, Dwayne Haskins, he was going to be a Maryland Terp if Locksley didn't leave for Alabama. So, I mean, Maryland could. Locksley's a good recruiter and everything. He's shown that as an assistant coach. I don't know how much of a factor he has as a head coach, but the reason why he was brought to the area, well, not brought to the area, brought to the job as the Maryland head coach, was because he knows the area well, recruiting-wise. That was the main reason.
Okay, McD, not a very good reason. But
I hope it changes soon. I really do.
Well, you're going to have to wait at least until next September.
Hey, let me throw one more scenario out before you have to hang up on me, because I know I'm taking too long. Let's say Joe Moorhead gets let go by Mississippi State, and he expressed interest in the Maryland job, because he is from the Northeast. I think he's more of a PA person, but they're obviously not going to be getting rid of James Franklin. I don't think anybody wants to coach at Rutgers. Would you replace Mike Locksley for Joe Moorhead?
Oh, I would, if that was the trade, I would trade Mike Locksley for Joe Moorhead, but I would not hire Joe Moorhead coming off a failure at Mississippi State. Maryland can do better than that. Grab an up-and-coming coordinator that's getting the job done, who's grab the next. We could go through a litany of tremendous coaches who have come up through the coordinator ranks in the last decade. Grab one of those guys.
The only thing is that you have to hit on the right guy. That's the only thing that concerns me about that. But, I mean, I think we keep Locksley. It better be approved next season. That's all I'm going to say. I know it took about 22 minutes of your time, Mark. Usually I don't take this long. But thanks for taking my call, Mark, and go Terps.
McD, thank you so much. So McD's going to need to start his own call-in show is what he's going to need to do. So throwing coaching searches at me and possible hot seats across the country. Interesting stuff. And that'll be something that we will need to be on top of the day after the season ends, because it's Black Sunday and all sorts of coaches get fired right after the season ends. And we will see more of those, because he brought up some intriguing candidates. Mike Williams, thank you so much for the contribution. I appreciate it there in the super chat. Thank you so much for valuing what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Somebody had asked for my prediction on the Ohio State-Michigan game. Considering I picked Ohio State to win the Big Ten before the season started and to go to the college football playoff. Enough said there. I have not made my official prediction. Keep in mind, I was 11-6 against the spread last week. I'm 57% against the spread this season. Those predictions you can find at our Voice of College Football community link in the description section of any of the videos. Go to any of the videos. The first line and link is our Voice of College Football community. I would think that you guys would love this offer. You get an offer for an exclusive live stream every week where you come on and talk to me, not via the phone. You come on, I send you the link, just like our guests, and you come on and we kick around college football for an hour. And I just envision this thing, especially since you suggested it. About 20 to 25 of you suggested that being something that you would like to see, that this could build up into a big thing where we do live streams every week and it involves all of you. And you could just jump on for 10 or 15 minutes at a time and we talk college football. So, anyway, that's the offer there at our Voice of College Football community on Patreon. So grab the link. And also my predictions 11-6 against the spread last week. And I'm not even selecting the best games to pick. I just pick all the top 25 games. The week that I did that and I said, these are my confidence picks, which was 2 weeks ago, I went 4-0 in my confidence picks against the spread. Again, Mike Williams, thank you so much for the contribution. It will not be wasted. We will continue to work and work hard. You guys cannot imagine the videos that are going to be produced and released in the next 3 days. I was charting out when these videos should be released, and I couldn't really find enough spots for them to be released because it's not fair to you, nor does it make a whole lot of sense in regards to YouTube to be sending out videos every 15 or 20 minutes. You need to space them out maybe 3 to 4 times a day. But I've got too much content to produce and too much that's already been produced. It's just going to be churning out constantly with rivalry previews. So just look out. They're coming. Nate, that's a mystery for the ages right there. What does McD mean? I'm right there with you. All right. Robert, I think if 2 SEC teams get in, Ohio State will be number 1 to avoid a semi with 2 SEC teams. John, is the Big Ten better than the SEC? No, but it's reasonably close and a decent argument. But no. Abe Jones won. They adjusted Baylor for under-ranking them earlier. I did have Baylor ranked higher than the College Football Playoff Selection Committee before they played Oklahoma, so that might be a decent comment. It might have some validity to it. Texas will be in the top 10 next year. Mineral Tim apparently getting some of his cues from Deep Barat on Texas football. Georgia wins. They both get in. Most likely. I never see any of my comments. Why is it my name I choice? So your comments. So my selection of the comments. Basically, I will throw everybody's comments on the screen unless one of two things is going on. Either you're attacking somebody and making fun of them, which to a certain extent that's allowed in the live chat. Trash talk all you want. I've had people ask me to kick off people who were trash talking. That's ridiculous. That's what it's for. Trash talk all you want. Just do not be offensive in a personal sort of way. Don't personally attack somebody. That's all we're looking to avoid. Other than that, I throw all the comments on the screen that I can get to, except for comments between yourselves, because if I put them on the screen, they don't make any sense. So your personal conversations, which are obviously not personal because they're public for everyone to see, but they're between two people, I don't post those on the screen. But everything else, I try to get to all the comments. And F ton, Ohio. Obviously, it's F, the team up north, Ohio. I welcome your comments, believe me. And I hope you enjoy our Michigan content here on a regular basis. Hopefully, Michigan fans are finding us because I have been churning out the Michigan content over the last couple months. Nate, you bring up an interesting question. I think we can all agree on what overrated and underrated means. That means the entity in question, whether that's the masses, the public, college football nation, certainly has a perspective or an opinion on a team, a player, and then somebody else comes in and says they're wrong. They are overrating, meaning they think too highly of that particular player or team, or they are underrating them. They don't think highly enough. What I often don't understand is some people will come to me and say, so and so's overrated or underrated. And I'll ask them, by whom? Who are we talking about? Who is underrating them? Cheryl roots for the Big Ten in bowl games, but that's just for me and our conference. I understand that approach to it. Cincinnati, the best team in the American Conference. We will see in the next few weeks. Don, please do not fall asleep in the car. You're scaring us, Don. Please do not. Wake up. Maybe I need to get Jason Parker back on here so I can have an argument with him and keep you awake. F, the team up north, Ohio. Ohio State will beat them 59-10. Woo! Chase Young will have a Heisman moment against Michigan. I'm well behind. I'm at 8:35. I'm 22 minutes behind in the chat. My apologies. We'll get there. Iowa State on the verge of a breakout season. Mark, would Ohio State choose Glendale or Atlanta if they match up against Bama? Suggest Glendale, natural grass field. Thoughts on venue if they play Utah? Well, I would think that they would want the short trip to Atlanta regardless. And why would Ohio State care about a natural grass field? They've got a fast team. I don't think they're wary of that. They would have a substantial speed advantage. When I say substantial, I don't mean like blazing speed advantage, but decided advantage over Utah. The other teams involved, when you talk about these elite athletes at LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson, who knows who has the speed advantage? Ohio State with the defensive speed advantage on an Oklahoma team for sure, but I would think that they would want the short trip to Atlanta unless they were going to play in Alabama that was going to bring the whole fan base like they've had to face against Alabama in New Orleans or LSU in New Orleans at the 2007 BCS championship game. Daniel asking, is the Pac-12 as a whole tougher to win in than the SEC? So I do think that the Pac-12 is not as significantly worse than the SEC as many people believe. But the SEC is far better than the Pac-12. Just stack up the teams in the SEC, however you want to rate them. LSU 1, Georgia 2, Alabama 3, or Alabama 2, Georgia 3. That's not the point. Florida 4, Auburn 5. Is Texas A&M 6? Am I missing somebody? I think there are 5 really, really good teams. There are 3 dominant teams, and then you've got 5 or 6 good teams, top 20 teams, and then it falters from there. But you still have an okay Tennessee team. You still have some other teams that are fairly capable, Missouri. But I do think that the Pac-12 is a pretty deep conference. Unfortunately for the Pac-12, the way the system is built is that it rewards conferences with elite teams. And so the Pac-12 can match up its 8th or 9th best team against a Big Ten 8th or 9th best team and probably win the game. The Pac-12 is deeper than the Big Ten, but the Big Ten has better teams at the top. The top 4 in the Big Ten are better than the top 4 in the Pac-12. Oregon, Utah, and then you fall off considerably this year. Washington's obviously been really good for the past few years. Robert, the Heisman has not gone to the best player in a while. It seems to go to a quarterback running. It's a quarterback award, running back to a lesser extent. It's an offensive players award. It's not for the best player in college football. It just isn't. College football, all of Iowa State's losses were by a combined 11 points, all to top 25 opponents. Thank you, Mr. Breeze there. Thank you so much for the backing on my comments concerning Iowa State. I could have used you in the previous hour when I was defending Matt Campbell's ability at Iowa State, which was a ridiculous argument that I had to wage. It was pathetic, but I did it anyway. And there's more proof right there. Iowa State's been a program for decades that has won 3 and 4 games, and Matt Campbell's winning 8 games, and even in the losses is extremely competitive, where in the past they have not been competitive. They've won 3 or 4 games or 2 games, and then they get blown out in the rest of the games. Isaac likes the Big Ten as a better conference than the SEC. Again, I don't think that's a completely off base comment. Cheryl says it's close. I think it's close. I still would take the SEC. So what we do after the season for the first time, if you're joining us for the first time during a college football season and you have yet to see us during an off season, what we do at the conclusion of the season, after I do my top 25, of course, that actually makes sense, the final one, I will go into the chamber and I will take all the results of the Power 5 games between the conferences and I will seed the conferences, and then I build a metric that is applied to the scores of the games. And I'll explain it at the time. And basically, I rank all the Power 5 conferences based on the results on the field, not my perception, but based on the results between the teams in the conferences. Unfortunately, we don't, and I will emphasize this during these videos, that we don't have enough results to make it a clear distinction between the conferences. For example, the SEC and the Pac-12 played 2 games against each other. That shows me little. When Cal and Ole Miss are roughly the 10th or 11th best teams in their conferences, maybe. Probably Ole Miss is a little bit further down the list in the SEC. And then Auburn's the 4th or 5th best team in the SEC, and they beat the 1st or 2nd best team in the Pac-12. That tells us something, but not a whole lot. The game went down to the last play, and Oregon had game control for most of the game. So there's little that can be drawn from that 2-game conclusion, that 2-game result. But I look across the country and I gather all the Power 5 results between the conferences and I put in a metric. So, for example, you can't just say Ohio State beat Oregon State. There's a win for the Big Ten. There's a loss for the Pac-12. Well, let's put it into context. Ohio State's the best team in the Big 12 and Oregon State's the 7th or 8th best team in the Pac-10 or whatever it is, the Pac-12. And so that each game needs to be put into context, not just the Big Ten was 4-3 against the Pac-12. What does that mean? Well, let's see who played whom, because if all the best teams in the Big Ten played all the worst teams in the Pac-12, then that needs to be taken into account, and we've got a metric for that. So stay tuned. About a week after the season, I'll go through all after the championship game, I will go through all the conferences and rank the conferences. Mo asking why Georgia gets the mulligan against South Carolina. I don't know what this applies to exactly, but I know I'm way behind. I'm up to 8:39 and it's 9:05. So let me try to get through these. And this is one of the big reasons why not all the comments make the screen, because I get way behind because you guys churn out more comments that I can get to. Shoemeister, thank you so much for the contribution here on the super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I keep saying this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to produce a video and please watch it. Give me 3 minutes to explain to you why you should contribute. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about likes, comments, and all the different ways in which you can contribute. I'm going to run down a list and basically say there are like 17 different ways in which you can help us build the channel. So I would appreciate that. I think many of these comments were being made while McD was on the line. I need to cut those comments. I need to cut those phone calls shorter. I do. What do we have here? Meister Mark, what committee selection do you agree with the most, and what selection did the committee make that you flat out disagree with? So I've had my issues with the committee in the past, but I just read off. So at the beginning, for those of you who are joining late, the video will post as soon as we're off the air. Just go back and watch it, and you'll see what we missed, what you missed, which was I went through the top 25, my top 25 that actually makes sense, and I compared it to the selection committee. And guess what? They're almost exact. And of course, mine came out on Sunday. So somebody's stealing my notes there at the selection committee. Basically, they're wasting their time. They could just take mine. They're very close. Not exact, but all of them are only off by one spot. There might be a couple that are off by 2 spots, but they're insignificant ones down the list that were off by 1 or 2. I do have LSU still number 1. Best resume. Illinois going to a bowl game. I, for some reason, applaud that. Applaud Lovie Smith. Like that story. Glad to see Illinois finally giving its fans something. All right, Dennis, I would need to know what you're alluding to. I don't know, though. Next, Big Ten coach who will move to the SEC. Who have we had thus far? Brett Bielema. Joe Moorhead. Nick Saban. George, thank you so much for allowing us your time. I know that you have company. Thank you for dismissing yourself. Mineral Tim 79 says Buckeyes 27-21. Eli, if the American champion ends up with 2 losses, which group of 5 team gets the New Year's 6 spot? That would go to Boise State at 12-1. I got to think they're the team under those circumstances. They've done it before. They've got the name recognition, and they play at a higher level of football in the Mountain West than App State does in the Sun Belt. Although I certainly understand that App State has wins over South Carolina and against North Carolina. That's impressive. Tony, they should do that. Give us some interesting matchups historically. Michigan, play App State again. Yes, it will hurt the rankings. Yes, Rutgers and Maryland playing in the Big Ten. And yeah, I find it out all the time that most of you, most of the people that I talk to and ask how long you've been have you been watching, and who do you root for? I find out that you haven't been watching for long, so it's great to have you aboard in recent weeks, and you'll see that we don't stop during the off season. It just keeps coming. We talk recruiting. We rank everything in the world that you could possibly rank. We rank players. We rank teams. We rank conferences. We do historical rankings. We look at history. We break it down. We do all sorts of different things, and certainly try to keep pace with the coaching issue. The coaching churn is going to start the day after the season ends and continue for a couple months into national signing. It's going to be constant, people losing their jobs and getting jobs. So we're going to have to stay on top of that. I am way behind on these comments. Tennessee and Texas A&M are not okay. I think I called them okay. They're decent. Certainly Texas A&M is. Unless only the top, let's say 20 teams in the country are decent. Nothing new except that you've subscribed. Nothing new. That would be the one new thing for Nothing New would be that he has subscribed recently. Thank you so much, Nothing New, for subscribing. For those of you who have not subscribed, please just check out the videos. I am not even going to ask you to subscribe. Just check out the videos. And if you love college football and you want to keep up on everything, certainly we are incapable. It's just me. I'm one guy with a full-time job elsewhere, so I'm incapable of keeping you up to date on everything, but we provide top-notch analysis from myself and also others. We have fun. So it's not perfect, but we have fun. We do our best. David, thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. Daniel, you should get assistance that filters comments to keep. Yeah, I should get assistants to do a lot of things. I could use a marketing assistant, a sales assistant, an operational assistant. Yeah. This would not be what I would put an assistant on, going through the comments. That would be a waste of time. That would not be the best use of their time. We could do much better on social media and in marketing and sales. We need to start making money. That's what's going to keep this thing going. Money. All right. Pac-12 is not deeper than the Big Ten. Even Illinois is playing better football if beating Wisconsin didn't prove that. Some people want to talk basketball. Not going to happen here. Big Ten with a better bowl record the last 2 years than the SEC, and the Big Ten always has to travel for their bowl games. I think that's a pretty significant thing. Yeah, it is. Okay, but also understand that better bowl record doesn't just, again, we're smarter than that. O'Malley, I don't know how long you've been watching. I appreciate the comments, but we're smarter than that. So we just don't say, oh, I know a certain entity out there gives away a bowl trophy to the conference that has the best record, but the Conference USA going 4-1 in bowl games is not better than the Big Ten going 5-5 in bowl games. So it has to be taken into context. Who did you beat? Who were you playing? Sometimes the better conferences, because they put more teams into the playoff and into the New Year's Six. There was a year in which the Big Ten had, in 2016, had a playoff team at Ohio State and then put 3 teams into the New Year's Six. So the tiers were totally screwed up, and the Big Ten had to pull like 6-6 and 7-5 teams up to play 9-3 teams in other conferences. So those were not fair matchups. So the conference records in the bowl games have to be taken into context. So we grind it down a little further than that. Jeff Fornwalt, I love the show, Mark. I watch this channel every time you're on, even if you're not talking about the Buckeyes, which is my team, and I like the info that you do all year round. Jeff, thank you so much. This is the first time I believe that I've seen one of your comments, so I appreciate you commenting. And thank you so much for the contribution to the channel. Please like all the videos. If you guys do anything, you know what? After you get off here, take 3 minutes and go through just as many videos as you can and click like. The reason I like that and the reason that is significant is not because I care if I see there's 172 likes versus there only being 52 likes. That it makes no difference to me. It's about the algorithms concerning YouTube. As I understand it, the more likes, the more comments, the more engagement, and specifically the likes, I guess, this is what I'm told by all sorts of people, gets it into the suggested videos column. And once you can listen to any commentary on YouTube and how to become more popular and get your channel out there, is the key is to get your video into the suggested videos because those are more highly sought after. And obviously, they're a recommendation by YouTube, a suggestion that most people just gravitate to. Just think about your own habits on YouTube. I think we all sit there and watch, and unless something hits us that we want to look up and search, we see okay, oh, that's on suggested videos, and we just tend to grab those because they're right there for us. So if we can get our videos in the suggested videos, that's what we need. And the way to do that, as I understand it, there's a number of factors involved, but likes are the one way you can control it. And obviously, getting it out there on social media and helping us get more views. All right. Mark, is there a metric for the style of play that a team employs? No. Results. The metrics should all be based on results. So you could play a triple option, and if you're winning every game 50-0 and you're churning out tons of yardage, then you're effective regardless of the style of play. Or if you have a pass happy offense but you're throwing 4 interceptions a game and throwing for 250 yards and it takes you 83 attempts to do that, then you're not successful and not efficient. Is there a chance that Baylor makes it? Absolutely. Let's see if we can find it. We'll say Clemson's in, the SEC champs in, Ohio State's in. Baylor only has one loss, and they can avenge that loss in the Big 12 championship game. So if Baylor wins their final game this weekend and then avenges its Big 12 championship loss to Oklahoma, that is the same formula the Sooners used last year in getting into the playoff. And Oregon, let's say, wins the Pac 12 championship game with 2 losses. There you go. Ohio State, Penn State, Wisconsin, and maybe Michigan and Minnesota are all going to be better than the Pac 12 champion. Just don't expect Michigan to ever win a bowl game. Maurice, please, please. I understand where you're going. Please. If we're being serious about it, if we're joking around, Ohio State beats the Bengals. No, no. Sup, Jesse? Good to see you. Unfortunately, as I put these comments on the screen, the other thing that screws me up is that every time somebody else makes another comment, then it jumps and I got to like go back and find where I was. Jesse, the big welcome. Who have I seen on here that I've never seen before or have not welcomed? We'll pick out O'Malley. Here it comes. You know, one of the reasons why I stopped this, Jesse, is fortunately more people are subscribing. So I can't keep up with the subscriptions, which are at about 1,000 a month. If we can get to the point where we're gaining 10,000 a month, then we'll be in good shape. But this is the other reason, because I'm right-handed and I can't come through, Jesse, but I'll try it. O'Malley, for example. Welcome to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Would love to know how long you've been watching and who you root for. That's what Jesse was looking for. All right, we're just having a big time, aren't we? Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, according to Ohio State fan, 17-13. I could use some water. Oh, look at that. A dog named Brutus. Like and subscribe. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. A dog named Brutus. Wonder who he roots for. Cheryl talking about Justin Fields and Steve Dace. Steve Dace does a great job. Comes on here on a regular basis. We enjoy those conversations, talking Michigan football. I have previews coming, and most of these games I have previews coming from both sides. Minnesota, Wisconsin, both sides. Ohio State, Michigan, both sides. Oregon, Oregon State. Auburn, Alabama. Clemson, South Carolina. Penn State, Rutgers. We're basically talking Penn State football. I've got a video coming out on Penn State football, the Rutgers game. Yeah. Nebraska, Iowa, Oklahoma State. Oh my goodness. Florida State. On and on and on. More previews coming this week, and some betting lines as well. All right. Sorry, I'm skipping so many comments, but we're never going to get done. I'm just going to say thank you to everyone. Thank you so much. And again, I am going to post a video, and I would ask everyone to please watch it, because I'm simply going to run down a list in which you can contribute, not monetarily necessarily, not monetarily necessarily, to the channel, but the first and foremost one, just like the videos. And then I'm going to run down all the ways in which you can contribute to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. One is right here. Christmas is coming. And if you shop online like most people do, and I certainly do these days, shop on Amazon, use the link that we provide in the description section of any of the videos, and you will make me the happiest guy on the planet. They're just pennies coming our way, but they all add up. So please do that. Use the Amazon link, and it provides great value for us. It's the same shopping experience, exactly. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Jay Jobs, thanks for joining. And everyone else as well. We've got an SEC championship game prediction already out of Cool Hive. And everyone else, the welcome from the voice of college football is awesome. Sorry that ever since I got this, I stopped, is basically what happened. I'm going to have to go left-handed with a big windup. All right. So if any of you have left comments that you want me to respond to, I'm not going to get to them here. Obviously, we've bypassed all of this. Please just copy and paste your comment and send it to any of the comments section of any of the videos. Just paste it in there to any of the videos, and I will do my best to get to them. I need to get to a reaction video on the comments here very soon. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please be on the lookout for more rivalry week previews. We will see you soon. If I don't see you before then, happy Thanksgiving as well. Enjoy the football.